Hello and welcome back to Tutoring with Gavin. In this video, I'll be showing you how to answer the Section A of Paper 1 on the AQA English Language GCSE exam. I'll be using a past paper from November 2018. Section B tutorials on narrative writing are available on another playlist on this channel, which I will direct you to at the end of the video. You should spend about 15 minutes reading the extract and about 45 minutes answering the questions in Section A. That will leave you around 45 minutes for Section B. So here is the source material from a piece of 20th century prose fiction called A Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. The extract is from the middle of the short story published in 1952. Some context on the story. So just to give you a little context on the story, using a time machine, an organisation called Time Safari transports clients into the past to take part in hunting expeditions. A group that includes Mr. Eccles, together with their guide Travis, is visiting a prehistoric jungle in order to shoot a Tyrannosaurus Rex. The jungle was high and the jungle was broad. Sounds like music and flying tents filled the sky, and those were pterodactyls soaring with huge grey wings. I've hunted tiger, wild boar, buffalo, elephant, but now this is it, said Eccles. I'm shaking like a kid. Ah, said Travis. Everyone stopped. Travis raised his hand. Ahead, he whispered. In the mist. There he is. There's His Royal Majesty now. The jungle was wide and full of twitterings, rustlings, murmurs and sighs. Suddenly it all ceased, as if someone had shut the door. Silence. A sound of thunder. Out of the mist, 100 yards away, came Tyrannosaurus Rex. It, whispered Eccles. It, shh. It came on great, oiled, resilient, striding legs. It towered 30 feet above half of the trees. A great evil god, folding its delicate watchmaker's claws close to its oily reptilian chest. Each lower leg was a piston, 1,000 pounds of white bone sunk in thick ropes of muscle, sheathed over a gleam of pebbled skin like the armour of a terrible warrior. Each thigh was a ton of meat, ivory and steel mesh, and from the great breathing cage of the upper body, those two delicate arms dangled out front, arms with hands which might pick up and examine men like toys, while the snake neck coiled, and the head itself, a ton of sculptured stone, lifted easily upon the sky. Its mouth gaped, exposing a fence of teeth like daggers. Its eyes rolled, ostrich eggs, empty of all expression save hunger. It closed its mouth in a death grin. It ran, its pelvic bones crushing aside trees and bushes, its taloned feet clawing damp earth, leaving prints 6 inches deep wherever it settled its weight. It ran with a gliding ballet step, far too poised and balanced for its 10 tons. It moved into a sunlit area warily, its beautifully reptilian hands feeling the air. Why? Eccles twitched his mouth. It could reach up and grab the moon. Shh, Travis jerked angrily. He hasn't seen us yet. It can't be killed. Eccles pronounced this verdict quietly, as if there could be no argument. He had weighed the evidence, and this was his considered opinion. The rifle in his hands seemed like a toy gun. We were fools to come. This is impossible. Shut up, hissed Travis. Nightmare. Turn around, commanded Travis. Walk quietly to the machine. We'll remit half your fee. I didn't realise it would be this big, said Eccles. I miscalculated, that's all. And now I want out. It sees us. There's the red paint on its chest. The tyrant lizard raised itself. Its armoured flesh glittered like 1,000 green coins. The coins, crusted with slime, steamed. In the slime, tiny insects wriggled, so that the entire body seemed to twitch and undulate, even while the monster itself did not move. It exhaled. A stink of raw flesh blew down the wilderness. Get me out of here, said Eccles. It was never like this before. I was always sure I'd come through alive. I had good guides, good safaris and safety. This time I figured wrong. I've met my match and admit it. This is too much for me to get hold of. Don't run, said Lesperance. Turn around, hide in the machine. Yes. Eccles seemed to be numb. He looked at his feet as if trying to make them move. He gave a grunt of helplessness. Eccles! He took a few steps, blinking, shuffling. Not that way. The monster, at the first motion, lunged forward with a terrible scream. It covered 100 yards in 6 seconds. The rifles jerked up and blazed fire. A windstorm from the beast's mouth engulfed them in the stench of slime and old blood. The monster roared, teeth glittering with sun, The rifles cracked again, but their sound was lost in shriek and lizard thunder. The great level of the reptile's tail swung up, lashed sideways. Trees exploded in clouds of leaf and branch. The monster twitched its jeweler's hands down to fondle at the men, to twist them in half, to crush them like berries, to cram them into its teeth and its screaming throat. Its boulder stone eyes levelled with the men. They saw themselves mirrored. They fired at the metallic eyelids and the blazing black iris. Like a stone idol, like a mountain avalanche, Tyrannosaurus fell. So question 1 asks you to read again the first part of the source from lines 1 to 9 and to list 4 things about this jungle from this part of the source. And there are 4 marks available. 1 mark is given for each point about the jungle. Each response must be true and drawn only from lines 1 to 9 of the text. Each response must relate to the jungle. You're allowed to use quotation or you can use your own words. So you could have answered, there were tall trees, there were pterodactyls, the jungle was full of noises, or the jungle was peaceful, and there are dinosaurs. So question 2. Look in detail at this extract from lines 16 to 26 of the source. How does the writer use language here to describe the Tyrannosaurus rex? You could include the writer's choice of words and phrases, language features and techniques, and sentence forms. It's worth 8 marks. This question covers AO2, which wants you to explain, comment on and analyse how writers use language and structure to achieve effects and influence readers, using relevant subject terminology to support their views. So a level 4, which is 7 to 8 marks, means you would have to show perceptive and detailed understanding of language. This would include analysing the effects of the writer's choice of language, selecting the range of effective textual details or quotes, and demonstrating a sophisticated and accurate use of subject terminology. So this is the answer I've written. Bradbury uses an extended metaphor of power and strength to describe the Tyrannosaurus rex. He says it towered over the trees. The verb towered suggests that the huge creature is imposing itself on the jungle surroundings from a great height and intimidating everything beneath it. He uses a wide range of metaphors and similes to describe the T-Rex, for instance, great evil god, implying the Tyrannosaurus rex is an all-powerful being without mercy, and also a terrible warrior, an image that conveys the idea of an invincible fighting machine destroying everything in its wake. Its legs are pistons, which suggest speed, and it has a snake neck to give it a terrifying appearance and the connotation of evil. Its teeth are compared to a fence like daggers, and the sibilance of sculptured stone shows how heavy this creature is, but also reminds us that this is part of history and should not be tampered with. Contrasting with these comparisons is the simile examine men like toys, which shows vulnerability of the hunters. Finally, Bradbury uses the power of 3 to provide us with a detailed image of the monster, great oiled, resilient, striding legs, and a ton of meat, ivory and steel mesh. This final phrase provides a complex image that makes us think of the food chain, extinction, and its seeming invincibility. Okay, question 3. You now need to think about the whole of the source. This text is from the middle of a short story. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? You could write about what the writer focuses your attention on at the beginning of the source, how and why the writer changes this focus as the source develops, any other structural features that interest you, and it's worth 8 marks. This question assesses how the writer has structured a text. Structural features can be at a whole text level, for example, beginnings, endings, perspectives, perspective shifts, at a paragraph level, like a topic change, and at a sentence level, when judged to contribute to whole structure. To get level 4, which is 7 to 8 marks, you need to show perceptive and detailed understanding of structural features. So you need to make an analysis of the effects of the writer's choices of structural features, provide a range of judicious examples or quotes, and have a sophisticated or accurate use of subject terminology. So this is the answer I've written. The beginning of the text focuses the reader's attention on Eccles and his guide, Travis, and sets this moment of the story in a prehistoric jungle setting. By travelling back in time, the writer provides an alternative perspective that readers would find unsettling, exciting or alienating. Initially, the jungle appears natural and peaceful, but this all changes with the adverb suddenly, which almost creates a moment frozen in time for the reader. It is followed by the abrupt use of the noun silence. This is then juxtaposed by a sound of thunder, which creates some growing tension and apprehension. The rest of the text is structured with description of the creature deliberately interspersed with the reactions of the two men. This provides the reader with a unique perspective, witnessing the dramatic impact of the monster as it becomes increasingly ferocious and the growing panic of Eccles, culminating in his realization that he is out of his depth. This entire section of the story is built into a climactic moment that would grip the reader, but also contains an element of irony, as we see that nature is more powerful than humans, and there are consequences when you tamper with the natural order of things. The extract ends with the senseless killing of a creature for sport, leaving the reader perhaps feeling cheated or saddened. And finally, question 4. Focus this part of your answer on the second part of the source from line 31 to the end. A student said, this part of the story where the men encounter the Tyrannosaurus Rex shows Eccles is right to panic. The monster is terrifying. To what extent do you agree? In your response, you could consider your own impressions of Eccles' reaction to the Tyrannosaurus Rex, evaluate how the writer describes the monster, and support your response with references to the text. It's worth 20 marks. So to get level 4, which is 16 to 20 marks, you need to show perceptive and detailed evaluation, evaluate critically and in detail the effect on the reader, show perceptive understanding of writer's methods. Methods here means techniques. Select a range of judicious textual detail, in other words quotes, and develop a convincing and critical response to the focus of the statement. So here's the answer I've come up with. Eccles' reactions change throughout the source. At first he seems quite calm, merely resigned to the fact that shooting the Tyrannosaurus Rex is an impossible task. When he says it can't be killed, he's offering his considered opinion, having weighed the evidence, and a panicked man wouldn't be capable of such rational thought. He feels unprepared, and Bradbury uses a simile to compare his rifle to a toy gun to suggest it's a plaything you would use in a make-believe game, rather than an effective weapon against a tyrant lizard with armoured flesh. Bradbury is cleverly presenting these human hunters as ill-equipped to deal with this force of nature that lunged forward with a terrible scream. Contrasted to this, we have the reaction from the experienced guides who tell him to shut up. Eccles starts to panic when the monster notices him, and we see the threat from his perspective because of the writer's multisensory description, which shows how terrifying and repulsive the Tyrannosaurus Rex is. We see its skin is crusted with slime, implying the oozing pus has congealed into dry scabs, and when it exhales, we smell that stink of raw flesh blew down the wilderness, suggesting it carries with it a stench of death and destruction. Eventually, Eccles seemed to be numb and gave a grunt of helplessness, conveying that by now he is paralysed with fear, and the rational thought he displayed at the beginning has completely vanished. Bradbury provides the sound of a shriek and lizard thunder as the trees exploded, which adds to the Eccles' panic. The moment comes to a climax as the T-Rex is about to twist them in half, to crush them like berries, to cram them into its teeth and its screaming throat. The powerful verbs of twist, crush and cram provide a terrifying threat to Eccles just before the creature is killed. While this part of the story does indeed show Eccles' panic because of the terrifying monster, the ironic tone of the writer also makes the reader think about the arrogance of these men and how they stupidly put themselves in this position. The killing of the T-Rex seems pointless and cruel despite the powerful descriptions of a prehistoric beast. Well, I hope this has helped you in your revision. For more information on question 5 of section B, please watch the playlist on narrative writing on this channel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to the channel so that I can continue to make these free video tutorials. Until next time.